So, it's the end of yet another week, and here on this channel that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week, training camp has been fully underway and preseason is right around the corner, so of course, we still have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now, so if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, it turns out about 57% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take that we'll be discussing today comes to us from Hooves, and he says that Patty Mills to the Brooklyn Nets was an underrated signing, and in this position, Mills could end up being a candidate in the 6th Man of the Year award race after having a strong summer with the Boomers. For those of you who are unaware, the Boomers are the nickname for the Australian national team, and at the Olympics, Mills sure had a phenomenal showing. The Olympics are an opportunity for players that aren't necessarily in star roles in the NBA teams to embrace more responsibility for their respective countries, and those opportunities give them a new level of confidence going into the NBA season afterward. Mills was Australia's go-to guy, he played genuinely great, and he had a monster 42-point game in the bronze medal game to lead them to a third-place finish in the tournament. We all knew going into this season that the Nets would be one of, if not the best team in the league, and one of the heavy favorites to win the championship because of their superstar trio of Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. And then they also made a ton of notable moves on the margins this summer, adding capable veterans to their rotation, so the addition of Mills isn't necessarily something people are focusing on. But regarding the original take at hand, I completely agree. I think Mills was maybe the best value signing made by any team this offseason, and his shooting and playmaking on the second unit of a team as talented as the Nets are is going to make them so lethal that I 100% can see him being one of the primary names in the 6th Man of the Year race. Like he said, the Olympics are a place for players in smaller roles to gain a lot of confidence, and if anyone came away ready to roll from that tournament, it was definitely Patty Mills. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from Ham Got Drip, and they say that the Clippers will not be a play-in team this year and will still be a solid top 5 seed in the Western Conference. So it's weird because this shouldn't seem like that bold of a take, and yet from what I've seen, the Clippers are one of the most underrated teams in the entire NBA going into this season. The cause of it is obvious, as Kawhi Leonard is going to more than likely miss most of the regular season while he recovers from his injury, and being without your best player is never ideal by any means. However, the amount of people that think the Clippers are going to actually struggle is a bit weird to me. No, they probably won't be one of the top seeds in the West, but did we all just forget about the fact that without Kawhi Leonard, this team still eliminated the 1-seed Utah Jazz in the playoffs last year on their way to their first ever conference finals appearance? This offseason, they did very well, retaining all of their key contributors that were hitting free agency by bringing back players like Kawhi, Reggie Jackson, and Nicholas Batum. They also acquired Eric Bledsoe, who, I admit, is a bit of a questionable fit, but he can handle more of an offensive workload than Patrick Beverley was capable of doing in Kawhi Leonard's absence, and I guess what I'm getting around to here is that I do agree with the original take we're discussing. Paul George seems to be back with his confidence higher than ever, he's ready to lead a team as a #1 option again, and the supporting cast is still as strong as any team in the Western Conference that they have to offer. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from Alaire, and they say that John Wall can be the final piece to a championship contending team similar to how Chris Paul was for the Phoenix Suns. Now, I know John Wall had a really good run as one of the best point guards in the league for years, but those days are literal years in the past. The last time he was an all-star was in 2018. Since that point, he suffered a serious injury that was clearly slowing him down last year, and in Houston last season, he was one of the biggest examples of empty statistics while actually playing a brand of basketball that, in some ways, was actually detrimental to the team's success. At one point, he was a solid perimeter defender, but last season he was pretty poor on that end. He's never been a great shooter by any means, but his overall scoring came more because of the fact that he had the freedom to take any shot he wanted last season, which resulted in pretty inefficient production. And then, when you take into consideration his massive supermax contract, he's just not an asset any championship contender will want to be going after. Making the money match in a trade for him is one of the most difficult tasks out there right now, and I know there have been reports coming out that the team is looking to trade him, but just like in the Ben Simmons situation, it might take a while for that deal to actually come about. Unlike Chris Paul, whose game has aged pretty gracefully as a floor general who still competes on defense, scores efficiently, and plays smart as a playmaker, Wall just doesn't really compare in any of those areas. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from JD, and he says that with the amount of talented guards in Sacramento, they could be a team that emerges this year to sneak into the playoffs. The Kings seem to be a popular choice as the next breakout team each of the last few off-seasons, but unfortunately they have yet to make that next step. They haven't made the playoffs since 2006, and there have been very few years since then that they've even come close. This new era of Kings basketball, to their credit, is becoming a fun group to see develop, and as I made clear on draft night, I'm definitely a fan of their backcourt with DeAaron Fox, Buddy Hield, Tyrese Halliburton, and newcomer Davion Mitchell. The problem for me, though, is that I don't really think the rest of the roster is playoff caliber, and even the backcourt is still pretty young. Marvin Bagley remains unhappy in Sacramento, Harrison Barnes is solid but not game-changing, Rashawn Holmes is solid but not necessarily a needle mover, and the rest of the team's depth isn't all that great. DeAaron Fox is a budding star, but the West is just so competitive, and the nail in the coffin is that Luke Walton is still their head coach, and to put it lightly, he hasn't exactly proven to be very good in that role. They aren't terrible by any means, but top 8 in the West seems like a stretch. The play-in tournament is something they definitely could strive towards by finishing in 9th or 10th place though, so that should be their more realistic target for the season. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes we discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.